Okay, we're going to have to talk about climate change again. You know, the mainstream media, especially the government-funded media, is full of exaggeration, misinformation and downright fake news often when it comes to climate change. And on social media, it's really an alternative reality where facts are inverted, and many politicians and activists, especially from the Greens and the organisations that support them like Get Up and Extinction Rebellion, well, what they put out is hysterical, alarmist and fact-free. But every now and then, we just got to give the facts a run. Take the coverage of the past 24 hours, the coverage of the Climate Change Performance Index, this release timed to coincide with the climate summit that's happening now in Madrid. Now, this is presented by all and sundry in the media as the findings of some reputable independent organisation ranking the performance of nations around the world on solid, verifiable grounds. This is far from the truth. The index is put together by climate activist think tanks in Europe, and if you read into it, it's clearly more about climate politics and grandstanding than it is about real facts and carbon emissions. Let me take you through a few of those facts. The survey, for instance, ranks the United States last on overall performance, even though it's one of the few countries in the world that's been decreasing greenhouse gas emissions while its population has increased. That's right, the US is cutting emissions even though its population and economy are growing, but this puts it last on the list. The commentary of the index attacks Donald Trump, of course, and blasts the US for withdrawing from Paris. It's not about emissions, you see, it's about politics. Australia, likewise, is cutting emissions and is signed up to the Paris Agreement and has invested a fortune, as you know, in this country, more than $60 billion at great cost to all of us in renewable energy. But they don't like our politics, so we are ranked 56th. It's that pathetic. China, whose annual carbon emissions are growing by more than Australia's total emissions every year, and who will continue growing at that rate for at least a decade and maybe 2 decades, is ranked 30th, 26 places ahead of Australia. India is ranked 9th. Australia is marked down for approving the Adani coal mine, but the country that will burn that coal is placed 47 places ahead of us, even though, of course, its emissions will rise strongly for decades to come. This is the nuttiness of this survey. It hates the politics of the US and Australia, so it places them at the bottom, even though they are cutting emissions. Yet people in this country, people who would claim to be loyal Australians, are happy to attack their own country based on this misleading fake news because they're caught up in the Green left climate change evangelism. Take ABC opinionista Barry Cassidy. He retweeted the left-wing Guardian's coverage of this story and said, "I don't think we've ever had a government so out of touch with a national concern and an opposition so incapable of putting pressure on them." What fact-free ideological tosh. Sadly, for prospective Labor voters, Anthony Albanese also retweeted The Guardian and said this: "Not only is the Morrison government not leading on climate action, they're not even following." And even worse was his shadow Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, again recirculating The Guardian's leftist take on the survey and saying, "It's now official. The Morrison government's failure to act on climate change has made Australia an international embarrassment." Mark Dreyfus, Australian MP, attacking Australia on spurious grounds. It's that sad. Fake news, fake surveys, fake politics. These people have learned nothing from the last election. They still treat voters like fools.